So we're here at the Centre for Computing History stand at the Gadget Show, and they've got a fascinating display which takes you back through the mists of computing time. This computer here, it may not look much like a sparkling modern device, but it is in fact the precursor of the most fashionable computers around today. This is the very first Apple Mac. It's got this very small black and white screen here. It's running Mac Paint, and it's got a mouse. Very much not an optical mouse. It's got a wheel so that it tracks you around the desk, and there it's running Mac Paint. Next to it is a Casio RZ1 drum machine. These machines like this are still used today, although they come on a bit, they look a bit nicer. This one's definitely got a very 80s feel, but as you can see, it still works. Now this, to anyone who grew up in the 80s will be very familiar. This is a Commodore 64. I think this is a Commodore 64A, but I'm not entirely sure on that. There were several revisions. But this was one of the most successful computers, of all time, really. But definitely one of the most successful home computers of the 80s. Here it's running various games, old-fashioned power play joystick there. Don't see the like of that anymore. There's some interesting games going on. What have we got here? A slightly less than high definition wrestling game, at which I'm not doing very well. This here is a BBC Master. The BBC was produced by the BBC, as the name suggests, in collaboration with a British computer company called Acorn, which made the hardware, and this was designed as an all-in-one educational system that was also good for games as well. It sold like hotcakes through the 80s. Here it's got the BBC, this is the entire unit. It combines the keyboard with the processing unit. There's a Microtronic, are they? I can't remember the name. Colour monitor up here, a trackball, the early alternative to a mouse, from which you could select various things. It's even connected to a LaserVision player. Now this was something that was very popular at the end of the 80s. It was the BBC's Doomsday Project, a collaboration between Acorn and various other companies to produce a version of the Doomsday Project, the Doomsday Book, on a disc that could be sent around to schools and viewed on a computer that looked a lot like this. In this cabinet here are various pieces of electronics from the 80s, a Sinclair ZX80, a Scion organizer, a company that went well on into the 2000s, still making the precursors to the modern smartphones that we use today. Some classic 80s phones, the Motorola Dynatac there, a very early Sony Discman, a Sony Walkman behind it, and some old cameras down there. There's a Miranda and an Olympus.
So we've moved on from the 80s to the 90s, and we've got a whole kind of array of bits and bobs here. Furby, of course, which will be the bane of many of people. He seems to be sleeping away nicely there. We've got an early version of a mobile phone from the early 90s, 1992 in fact, and over here is a 90s handheld. As you can see, as compared to the 80s one we showed you, it's a lot smaller, but it's still fairly chunky by today's standard. Now over here we've got some home computers. This is the Commodore Amiga. Pretty popular computer of its time, of course, because of the joystick and the mouse, and the whole unit is contained within this fairly chunky keyboard. Not the prettiest of things, but it was really, really popular. Over this way, we've moved on to tape players. Tape players, of course, are now being replaced by MP3 players. So here you've got a couple of the Philips ones, and I believe what we've got there is a mini-disc player. Mini-disc wasn't quite so popular, but you know, it was around for a while. Down here, mobile phones from the early days of mobile phones in the 90s. A very chunky Nokia. Everyone seemed to have a Nokia, and there's one of the more popular ones. You've got the Nokia one that used to flip up, and of course all these phones, you can see they've still got the sticky out aerials, which were kind of the style at the time. Down this way, we've got photography, digital photography, some of the earlier ones here, so you can actually store digital photos for the first time. And further down again, we've got personal data assistants, PDAs, the kind of very popular things that were all over offices across the country. Not so popular now, they've been replaced by tablets, but we've seen some stuff that isn't too dissimilar to that around the show floor today that's running Windows 7. So, believe it or not, this is a mobile phone. It's pretty heavy, it's 1.5 kilograms. You know, it's really quite a substantial piece of kit, but it was a mobile phone. You know, you pick it up and you can make a call. This was from the very early days of mobile phones. It isn't really portable, but you could kind of carry it around in a bag, get a bit of backache and make calls on the move. Elsewhere on this stand, what have we got here? It's the Amstrad NC100. This is kind of like a little computer, kind of a precursor to a laptop. The screen is all here, and you could kind of, it's a word processor, essentially. Big CD and tape deck players. That's kind of a very iconic sight from the 1990s. So not really so old, and a lot of people still have these in their homes, and they're great pieces of kit. You've got the radio, you've got 2 decks so you can record from tape to tape, a CD player, and it's all on a nice graphic equalizer as well.